So today I'm excited to walk you through the complete Musician OS template, the all-in-one creative and business operating system designed specifically for musicians, producers, and music industry professionals. Now, my name is Thorn Davis. I'm a professional musician with my band Tora. I have co-founded a record label called Noon Records with this band, and I've also recently founded a new ambient-focused record label called Zodiac. But more than anything, I really love building systems and tools for musicians and music professionals because I think the business side of music is what most artists are really lacking. You'll also have to please excuse my blocked nose. I'm at the tail end of a flu, but I really wanted to get this video out to share the best practices for getting started with Musician OS, as some of you are asking for a little bit of guidance. So in this overview, I'm going to show you why the full Musician OS template is a game changer compared to the individual templates, say like releases or content or tasks on their own. You'll also see how these powerful components all work together to form an integrated system, which is helpful in creating a seamless workflow from capturing creative sparks to helping you finish tracks and a whole lot more. But most importantly, we're going to look at how to get set up quickly so that you can start building your Musician OS straight away. Now, this video is perfect if you're considering upgrading from an individual template, or if you're new to Musician OS and you just want to see the big picture before diving in. But just a quick note, this is not going to be a deep dive into Notion itself. We'll specifically focus on the Musician OS system and how it can transform your music career. So whether you're handling your own releases or running a small label or managing multiple creative projects, let's explore how Musician OS can become your secret weapon for music career success. And with that, let's dive in. Alright, so this is the Musician OS template, but before we dive into this, I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping around the different options. So the first is that you've come in and you've just bought the Musician OS template itself, and here, this is the welcome page that you will see. There's the Musician OS template, there's a live demo, and there's a lot of other freebies. If you've bought the All Access bundle, you're going to see Musician OS, the live demo, but you're also going to see the individual templates. Musician OS is the combination of all of these core components. So within Musician OS, there is tasks, there is notes, there is seeds, there is content. And what makes Musician OS so powerful is that they're all connected using different relation properties. So you can create a task which is relating to a different database view. And we're going to look at exactly what that means in a second. But just to say, I would suggest starting with the Musician OS template because it is very comprehensive. It has everything you need and possibly more, but it allows you to build and personalize the perfect operating system for your project. Whereas if you've already got task management and you've got a lot of stuff set up and maybe you want to take a more gradual approach to incorporating Musician OS templates, then you could start with the individual templates. But you'll have to know that if you get the task template, it's not going to be natively connected to the content template once you import them into your workspace. So just want to highlight that. If you're wondering what the difference is between them, that is essentially it. This is the combination of all of the different core components. This is the core components separated without any relations between them. So with that, let's dive into Musician OS and get started. Here on the home page, you're going to see a bunch of different pages here which relate to all different aspects of your music project. You're going to see the ability to quickly create new tasks, notes, seeds, whatever it is, which relate to these different database views here. But under System, you can see that we've got these different pages. And these links here are just linking to these different pages. And I've put them here just because I wanted to make the template as clean as possible. There's two other things in here, which is components and databases, which I want to just touch on quickly. Components is an overview of every dashboard, every template, and every guide that exists within the Musician OS system. And I'm going to leave you to just scroll through all of this, but as you can see, there is a lot in here. So to just demonstrate that quickly, if I say create new label copy sheet, you'll be prompted with this. You can click continue and it'll start to generate a page here. And within this page, you're going to see a quick start guide on what a label copy sheet is and the ability to download these templates below. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I just want to highlight because this is how you can navigate around the whole system easily. So let's jump back to home. The next thing here that you'll see is databases, and this is all of the core databases which exist within Musician OS template. You will not need to adjust any of these, but they're just here for your reference in case you're wondering like where everything is really originating from. It's in this database view here. So with that, let's dive into the first core component, which is tasks. I've put some tasks in here already just to give you a bit of an overview of how things look. But this would really be one of the first places that I would be starting. What are some tasks that you need to complete? What are some deadlines that you want to set? What are some things you need to do to start getting your project in order? And I would just be coming through here. You click create a new task and you could just say create album artwork, right? By default, this is going to be set to inbox, but you could change this to next action, waiting on. So if we say next action, great. What is the due date? It's in 1 week time. What project does this relate to? Say it's this Forevermore LP. What campaign does this relate to? Album merch. And what works is this relating to? So works are just different songs, right? And we're going to go through and look at all of these as we're going through the templates, but just to show you that this is the power of Notion here, is that things start to link. So now that we've created this task, you'll see that it's not actually showing up in here because this is today. This is a filtered view of tasks that are due today or before. But if you come down to tasks here, you can see this new task we just created has now popped up. And as you're working through it, you can be moving things around here, or you can move it to completed when it is done. Now, projects are essentially longer running missions that have a specific deadline. So if you're looking at releasing an album, then a project might be album release, but it could also be something smaller, which is do all of the graphic design for the album, right? Because this is something that has a definitive end date and there's specific tasks that need to live within this project. Now, I've touched on this in different tutorials, which are looking specifically at the tasks template, which is all perfectly valid for this because it's exactly the same thing. The only difference here within the Musician OS templates is that we have the ability to now link to other things. As we saw, if you open up a task here, you can see it's relating to campaign, it's relating to works, which is in your catalog, so on and so forth. You can also see relations here to specific releases. On the left-hand side, you'll see we've got different dashboard views, again, which I have touched on in previous templates. But as a start, if you're new to Musician OS and if you're new to Notion, this is the first place that you want to start doing things, is creating some tasks, creating some projects, even going through and creating some goals around what you're hoping to achieve, and then also linking all of this to different areas. And as I've mentioned in the previous video, areas are specific areas of interest which do not have an end date. And as you can see, this is video clips, trademarks. It could also be things related to business, could be things related to your artist project. I've taken the liberty of adding in a lot of different options to get started. You can delete them all, you can add more, you can remove them, tweak them, adjust them. That's totally up to you. But I just wanted to put something in here to get you started quickly. And here at the bottom, you can also see a dynamic timeline or calendar of all of the different tasks which are penned. Next up, we have got notes. So notes is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we need to touch on this too much. I just want to highlight that we have got notebooks, which are essentially like groups or categories for your notes. So if you're adding a note here, which is to say update logo, the notebook, which you might be putting this in, would be branding, right? And the status here is just to say, is it a quick note or have you actually reviewed it? And the thinking behind this, let me explain. When you're on the go and you have an idea or you want to quickly capture something, you sometimes just open up a note and you just scribble some stuff down. And that's all well and good, but it doesn't get it organized or categorized well enough. And so the reason why I have this inbox system set up is that at the end of the day, you can actually come here to your inbox navigation and you can see, hey, I've still got 2 notes which are pending, which need to be processed. You open them up, you add whatever information it is into this note. And then once it's clear and it's organized and categorized properly, maybe you want it to favorite it too, you say, yes, I have reviewed it. And now it's going to be nicely organized. Boom. Right? And you've also got favorites here, everything you need to organize your notes. Now, next up, we have got seeds. A seed is the beginning of an idea, specifically something related to creation or music or art, right? So if I'm scrolling on Instagram or if I'm looking on YouTube or even if I'm sitting on a park bench, and I have an idea which is relating to creation in some way, then I will put it into my seeds bank, because the seed is the beginning of an idea. It's you nurturing something. And often when I need to find some creative inspiration, I will come back to my seeds dashboard and I'll start looking through things. And you can see there's different kinds of seeds. It could be audio, image, video, text, links, whatever it is, so that when you're actually coming to create, you have a plethora of different ideas to draw upon. And this is different to notes in the way that a note might be like, hey, I need to write down a list of all of the music equipment that I need to buy for my new studio, but that doesn't necessarily relate to the idea of a new song or a new album artwork or something like that, right? And so there's a distinct difference between them. You're still capturing information in both cases, but with notes, it's not information which relates directly to creativity, and with seeds, it is. With that, I'll leave you to explore. So far we've gone through tasks, notes, which is self-explanatory, seeds, which is essentially like notes, but focused on creativity specifically. And next up, we have got songwriting. Now, when I was with my band, we go into a studio, there's music equipment everywhere, and we're getting ready to start creating. Now, often case, if you do not have deadlines, and if you do not have specific outcomes that you're trying to achieve, creation just wafts into many different directions, and at the end of a writing period, you can actually be surprised at how much time has been used, but how little stuff has actually been finished or created. And all of the most proficient songwriters that I've come across in my life, they express the importance of deadlines. And so essentially what the songwriting database or the songwriting dashboard is helping you to do is to list a song that you're starting. Say it could be a demo or an idea. Once you've opened up your door and you've started creating something, you would come in here and you create a name for it, you create a status for it, and then you start creating listening notes. So let me explain this in a different way. I open up Ableton. I start making some music, and after an hour, I'm like, cool, I'm going to save this. I need to go do something else. I save it, I give it a name. I come into my songwriting dashboard and I create a new song. So let's go through and do it. We're going to call this one Waking Life, which is an awesome movie if you haven't seen it before. And the status is in progress, right? And what I'm going to do is actually set a deadline. You're not going to let it just go on and on and on. Now, I've been setting myself some very outrageous deadlines because I want to get faster at making music. So I'm going to say that, hey, in 2 weeks' time, this song needs to be done. And I set this deadline, and I can also link it to an artist, which is, say, Tora, or if I want to create a new one, I just put my name here. Now you can see immediately that under listening notes for this track, we have got some different categories. So there's writing the song, there's recording the song, there's arranging the song, there's the production, the mixing, and the mastering. They don't all always have to happen in this exact order. Usually mixing and mastering will always be last, but it might be that you write, you start recording, but then you actually go back to writing, but then you start doing arrangement, or it could be you doing production very early. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter. All that I'm saying here is that a song needs to go through these different phases. So if we've spent an hour working on Waking Life, we're going to say we have already actually started the writing, so the writing is in progress, and we still need to add a synth piece, which is not started, and we're going to add new drums for chorus. And so the next day when I actually come back to work on this track, I'm not just going to open it and aimlessly wander around. I'm going to say, hey, actually, I need to work on adding that synth piece, and I'm going to add new drums to the chorus, right? And why this becomes important is because when you're listening to the song in the wild, say you're a little bit further down the line, you export the track, you're listening in your headphones, and you go, actually, it needs this thing, or I should put that. You're coming back into your songwriting section here, and you're adding these listening notes in, so that they're not just floating around in your head, they don't get lost, and every time you're coming back to work on this track, you know exactly what you need to be doing. This way of systematizing songwriting might seem a little bit clinical, but it is so important, especially when you're getting started, because it really helps train your mind in the steps that are required to take a song from idea to completion. I cannot stress this enough. And what you'll notice here is as you're completing these different things, you see this tracker here, it's going to show, hey, that's done, and when that's done, and then you're starting on the next thing, recording, so on and so forth. So pretty straightforward. You'll also see that as we've added Waking Life in here, if you scroll down, it'll also show up here, all of the progress. What you can also do, if you like, is that you can come and you can click Start. And what this does is essentially, it begins a timer. And so you can actually track how long you're spending on each element of a track or each phase of a song. And when you're done, you can hit stop, it cancels the timer, and then it starts to clock up a total of how long you've spent working on this track. I would say the objective is to get this down as much as possible, but hey, it's not about rushing, but it's also not about wasting time. So just make sure that you're not like on your phone, burning time, whatever. Great, that's the songwriting. It's a little bit of a nuanced template, but it's a super important one, especially if you're in a band, especially if you're struggling to finish songs. This is a very good template to use to make sure that you're staying on track. Again, here in the navigation, you can also see a timeline for all of the different tracks that you're working on. Some of these I created a while ago, so they're all linked here. And it's just another way of visualizing the information. Again, you can see all songs completed. Next up, we have got content. Now, treat your content in the same way that you treat your music creation, which is that it needs to get done. You need to market your music, and all of these social media platforms are free platforms for you to market what you're doing. I like to do batch content. So what this really means is that I'll come in and I'll say, hey, I need to create some Instagram posts for the week or the month ahead, and I'll start writing out some ideas, whether it's a new reel, a post, a story, whatever it is. And it's very easy. You just hit new reel here. It opens up a view. You can see everything's already linked, and you've also got an ability to put in your footage, the edited video. You can try different covers, captions, hooks, the whole thing. You don't have to use everything, but I just wanted to include all of the stuff that I found to be very useful, so that if you want to use it, it's there. But I think this is very important. And again, you just come in here, you batch create your content. As your content is moving from different statuses to being scheduled, you set a publish date. It's all pretty straightforward stuff, right? And you can also see here that by platform, if you click on Instagram, you're going to be able to see all of the different content pieces which are relating to Instagram as well. You can also see a calendar here of all of the upcoming content. You can see drafts, today, schedules. Moving along to catalog, this is where you actually record all of your songs which are completed and have actually been uploaded. So you could come in here, you create a new work. You've got all of the different information that you would need to put in to make sure that you're tracking this new work. And this becomes important to make sure that you're staying on top of all of your royalties, that you're submitting everything, that you've got a clear breakdown of who's contributed what, all of the information and the metadata for your songs which have been distributed. So once they're actually live on streaming platforms, can be put into this section. So you're really on top of your entire catalog, keeping everything organized and making sure that no royalties are slipping away. This is also a very good place to record your lyric sheets. So for all of the lyrics that relate to specific songs, you can come in here. There's a specific dashboard view for that. And you've also got song credits, who's done what on the song, what are the splits, that can all get recorded here. And again, you can link it to the track. And below here, we've got the different views for the different work types. Awesome. Okay, so moving along, we've got releases. Now, releases are for tracking the campaign of a release. So this might be all of the things that actually need to be done specifically for a release. And I've touched on this before in, again, other videos, but just to give a brief overview of this, you can create a new single, album, remix, whatever it is. This will show up here under your releases, and all you need to do is come in here and just change the status of this release, and it'll automatically generate the tasks related to this phase of a release. As you can see below, it starts to generate all of these tasks automatically. Now we can have a tasks database here, but we can also have a tasks database here which relate to the same database. Now, because all of these different tasks were created automatically, what I would do is I would say, hey, have we done an artist EPK? Yes, we've completed that. Have we done the release, press release? Yes. Are we waiting on this? Yes. So on and so forth. You go through and you organize these. You can also come in here and you can actually set specific dates and projects for all of these different things. Right, you really get the idea. And once you've completed all of these, then you would come back to your releases. You can also see the tasks here, obviously, and then you would click and go on to the next phase, which would generate a whole new bunch of tasks for you, right? So this is for the people who are a little bit new to music releases and feel like they're not on top of everything, or they're not sure what to do, or they don't have a team built around them yet. And within each of these different releases, you can also see the tasks related to this release, but you can also find the audio assets and the visual assets, right? So this is what you can send to a PR team or to a creative director who's working on a video and needs to hear the songs, needs to get brand asset information from you, all of that kind of stuff. All can be found within each of these different releases. They all have the same internal structure. I have touched on this in a previous video, so I won't go into this much further, but just to say that is all there. Next up, we have finances. So as you're getting money in, or you need to track your royalties, this is the place where you would do that. So a new income would be like, hey, I've just received some money from Spotify. So you would say Spotify, or more likely actually, depending on who you distribute it through, you would say TuneCore. And how much did they send me? They sent me $120. When did I receive it? I received it today. Income category. This is for digital royalties. The account that I receive this into is bank account A. Awesome. Now you can see this pops up here under royalties, and you can see this is also now credited our total profit here automatically. You can see this is linked under income as well. And because we don't have any expenses yet, well, it's showing that we have total profit of 120. But if I create a new expense and I say TuneCore subscription, and we say this is $20, and when did we pay that? Well, we paid that today. In the expense category, well, let's call it subscription just to keep it easy. Spending account, we spent it from bank account A. And if we come back, you can see we now have total expenses of $20 US. Our profit has gone down by 20, and you can see that we have got the expenses here. So it's a very simple but very powerful way to manage music-specific income, because a lot of times your royalties are going to come from different places, and it's a very good way to stay on top of what is happening, how much you're spending, and what's going on generally with your business. One of the things which I actually use and love the most is this subscriptions view down here. This is probably where a lot of money gets burned for a lot of people, wherein you're paying for Netflix and Spotify and whatever else, you name it, right? And it can be difficult to know where all of this different money is going. So as you're signing up for different subscriptions, you come in here, you add the category, you add the name, you add the price, and it gives you a total of how much you're spending each month. And so that you can actually stay on top of what's going on. And as you're no longer using using services, you can say that you're unsubscribed, and it doesn't have to fully delete it, but it just removes it from this total here. And then if you come back to all subscriptions, you can see that, hey, actually I do need to use Descript again. So you resubscribe and it'll come back on here in your active subscriptions. The last thing I want to touch on here is budgets. If you're getting ready to release an album or go on tour or do anything, creating a budget is one of the most important things that you can do to make sure that you're not going to lose money. Everything that you're doing when you're getting started as a musician, you need to be cost engineering like crazy. So budgets are super important. And this budgets view here is a way of balancing your income and your expenses. You can also see that you've got different categories and accounts as well for dealing with all of this. But I've also created a quick start guide here to help you just go through this quickly, so I don't have to do the whole thing now, but the information is in there. But just to say, if you're embarking on any big mission which requires a lot of money or time, create a budget and just make sure you're actually aware of what's going on and that you have very clear expectations about what you're going to spend and how much money you might need to borrow or not borrow or whatever the case is. But again, here on the navigation, you can see that we've got views for all of your different budgets. You've got views specifically for your profit and loss, and you've got views for music royalties, so on and so forth. It's all pretty self-explanatory. If you have got a paid Notion plan, you can also make use of charts which help you to visualize this information a little bit more clearly. Next up, we have got merch. Now, this is probably one of the more complicated parts of this entire template, and I actually do think it would benefit from me making a specific video on this. But essentially, this merchandise template is designed to suit people who are fully managing the merchandise themselves, from buying the shirts to getting them printed, to then putting them on the store, to having them purchased, and then tracking the inventory. So it's every step of the way, which is usually what is happening for bands and artists who are getting started. You will go to AS Color or Gildan or whatever shirt provider. You will order 100 shirts. You will then send them to a screen printing guy or to a different manufacturer who will then print them for an additional cost. You'll then get them back. You then have to put them on your online store, whatever the case is, right? So there's like a lot of different steps involved with creating merchandise and also just tracking exactly what's happening and how much everything is costing. So this is a very integrated system which helps you manage that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing now because it definitely deserves a video on its own, and I don't want this overview video to take too long. But just to say that that's what this is essentially doing. You are completely free to play around with it and figure it out yourself. It's not that complicated, but if you're a little bit unsure about how to get started, or if it's not making sense to you, hang tight. I'll make a video about this very soon. Now, the final core component is Tour. And this is probably one of the most powerful templates in managing an independent tour that is available to artists. The reason being, all of the things that you need to do to self-manage a tour, or even if you have a manager or tour manager who's going to be helping you do this tour, everything is packed in here. I have also created a specific video on this component as well. So if you're interested in this, please go watch that because everything you need is within that video. So I'm not going to touch on this too much. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on is Toolbox. This is really just a link to a lot of different websites and services which I have used over my time and find very valuable. It's not necessarily something that relates only to music, but there's just a lot of really cool services in here that I think are worth checking out to just help you with design and business management and all of that kind of stuff. I'm constantly updating this Toolbox as well to have different links and new services in here. But if you want to, you can just go through all of the different categories and say, for example, clicking on dev, you're going to find all of these different things which relate to web development, image. You can find all sorts of different things which relate to helping you create vector images, designing things, all of that kind of stuff. And there's probably a lot more that I could dive into. As I mentioned, start creating a few tasks, add a few projects, link things together, create some notes, link a note to a task, all of these things, and start building out the system bit by bit, and you'll get a feel for how the whole thing works. And so with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has been on this Musician OS journey with me. I'm looking forward to creating more tools. I've got a lot of fabulous ideas coming up in the future. But if you have any other questions or anything you want to share with me, please drop it in the comments or send me an email, and I'll be happy to help you guys out.